Okay.
An official holiday in 1863, but it had been governments that proclaimed days of prayer and thanksgiving literally over 1,000 times or more in the first few centuries.
So Thanksgiving Day, as we know it, which is it the last Thursday in November? Anyway.
It's the fourth Thursday.
The fourth Thursday in November, which is almost always the last Thursday in November. So it's been that way since Lincoln, or do you know the answer to that?
Well, officially since Lincoln, but as I mentioned, our first president, George Washington,
right,
at the recommendation of both houses of Congress, he set aside November 26, which was a Thursday, 1789, because as I mentioned, civil governments had been proclaiming days of prayer and thanksgiving and prayer and fasting from the very beginning, really before the Pilgrims even. The Jamestown settlers did it in 1619 at Berkeley Plantation, but they did it all the time. They had a day of prayer and fasting and a prayer and thanksgiving at least once a year. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, for kind of historically, that had been a day that they had chosen to do that. So Washington did it. Most every president since Washington, from between Washington and Lincoln, did as well. But Lincoln made it an official. So okay, officially, as a nation, we're going to do this every year. So it became official under Lincoln, but had been done since our beginning.
All right, Stephen, if people want to read more about this, and you've got so many resources, books and videos and all kinds of things on early American history in particular, how do people do that?
Well, you go to our website, providencefoundation.com. I do have an article why we celebrate Thanksgiving, so go there and Google it. You can take it and read that tomorrow as you sit around. It's a short little article that recounts this story. And then we have lots of books and materials and videos that you can get at our website, providencefoundation.com. But be sure to get that free article to remind yourself why we celebrate Thanksgiving. That's the name of it.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. You're not expected to be appointed to any position in the Trump administration, right? Like Secretary of History, maybe?
Well, it'd be nice, but I don't think I get confirmed. I've written too many controversial things.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care. See ya.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
He might actually get through confirmation, because something I've learned about senators is that they vote for things they didn't read. So
anyway, did you know all that about Thanksgiving?
I heard the story, but when I was listening to Stephen, it just brings back also God's providence. How he uses weather, he uses the connection of that native Indian who went to England and spent time there, comes back, and he feels sorry for these English settlers who have just gone through this horrific winter, and he's there to help them. Only God can arrange that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. By the way, Stephen McDowell, who you just heard us interview, he will be with us when we go to Boston on a tour next October. It'll be our first ever trip to Boston, Mass, and we're going to see all the history in that
great city
and the surrounding area. So, and of course, Stephen will be going with us to Williamsburg and Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon and all our tours next year. So if you want information on that Boston trip, it's going to fill up pretty quick based on the people already signing up.
And it's a great time of the year.
Yeah, October. So you get to go up there, and if you want to go to see the foliage, just going up for that after our tour. So we'll see part of it during our tour. But anyway, so if you want to go to Boston with us a year from next October, or Williamsburg in the summer, in Washington, D.C., all these tours that we do, if you want information on them, we have a new website. Just go to wildmangroup.com. That's WILDMON group.com. www.wildmangroup.com, and just click on the tour you want information on Boston, Williamsburg, or Washington, D.C. You're listening to today's Issues. Next story, Chris.
We had a major announcement yesterday.
Is it major, Chris?
It is. Based on what I'm about to share, Walmart, the world's largest retailer, is rolling back its diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI policies, joining a growing list of major corporations that have done the same after conservatives and conservative organizations, including American Family Association, have been voicing their concerns about Walmart's policies here. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that Walmart has done, they're going to be getting rid of DEI policies, including a policy that Walmart had they're going to do away with a 5-year commitment for an equity racial center set up in 2020 after the police-involved death of George Floyd. They're also going to pull out of a prominent gay rights index. And when it comes to race or gender, Walmart says it will no longer be giving priority treatment to suppliers. I got some reaction to this from Jerry Boyer. Jerry Boyer of Boyer Research is somebody AFA partners with on investor activism. And Jerry says this is a very good thing what Walmart has announced here. Clip 11.
It's one thing to do it with the Tractor Supply, very conservative, customer base, not a giant company. It's another thing to do it with the largest employer in America, and a company that is sometimes the largest revenue company in the world. This is much bigger. This is a real stronghold. And Walmart had gotten pretty far to the left before. So they're coming, which you wouldn't expect from an Arkansas-based company, and yet we see this over and over again. Companies that should never have gotten this far to the left get a wake-up call. So this is really big, and I think this is going to set off what they call a preference cascade. Once Walmart does it, a lot of other companies are going to do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it goes back to the Supreme Court decision against affirmative action. These companies knew when the new sheriff comes to town, when the Trump administration comes to town, that they were going to face lawsuits on this idea of giving preference based on race, preference based on sexual orientation. They were going to face lawsuits backed up by a Trump Justice Department. So that's why a lot of these companies, plus they saw the election results too. They saw the country, the pendulum has moved back to more conservative, and they saw all of this coming.
Yeah, the DEI, what does that stand for again?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, that's been around a while, but it basically just took off after the George Floyd death and the protest around the country against the police and against racism. That's what they said. Systemic racism, which I don't believe in. I don't think there's such a thing as systemic racism. Was there at one time in many parts of America? Yes, there was, but that hasn't been an issue for a long, long time. All right, several decades. So what they're trying to do with this DEI is keep it going, keep the Al Sharpton view of the world alive. Basically, that's what DEI is all about. And it's unnecessary, and it in itself is divisive and with people. And so, listen, we don't need all this stuff where you're trying to pit this group against that group. We just need rules for everybody to follow, people to be, you can't discriminate based on race.
Yep.
And everybody knows that now. Huh?
Yep.
So who's doing it? If you're doing it, take somebody to court or report them or whatever, but people aren't participating in that kind of activity anymore. So there's no need. Basically, this diversity, equity, inclusion now is just being pushed so you can push the trans issue. That's basically all basically all they're trying to do right today is push the trans issue on people. And
there's huge rebellion against that, as we've talked about.
And also, these corporations, as big as they may be, like Walmart, for example, they have to budget for this part of their company called DEI. Well, they may budget, $10 million a year. I don't know what they budget. You know what I'm saying? To staff this office.
Yeah.
And they're looking around going, we need to make cuts. We need to make cuts because, and we're going to have to pick parts of the corporation that don't bring any value, monetary value at least. And something like DEI, you go, we don't need this, okay? There are already laws in place about racial discrimination. There are already, we already teach our employees to be, nice to one another and to customers, So you don't have to stress that with, videos and slideshows and all that stuff. All right, and all these DEI folks are almost all far lefties. Almost all of them.
Yeah.
You very rarely, they don't hire conservatives or traditionalists or Christians for that matter to be a part of that. All right, so we're going to take a short time out right here, Chris. A profound thanks to
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Are the Dolphins playing tomorrow?
Yes, they play Green Bay. The Dolphins are 5-6 and are the first team on the outside looking into the playoff picture.
So they play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow.
Okay. The Miami Dolphins play at Green Bay?
At Green Bay.
At Green Bay. That'll be interesting. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
Author of the book, A Minute for Caregivers, When Every Day Feels Like Monday.
I've been a caregiver for nearly 40 years, and I know how important it is to encourage a family caregiver. I also understand that caregivers don't have a lot of time, and each chapter of my book can be read in a minute. It's encouragement, support, and each chapter will point you to safety. Oh, by the way, they're all written in fluent caregiver.
A Minute for Caregivers is available at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Key. Could the U.S. sanction nations which comply with the UN's court warrants to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Eben Brown reports.
A bipartisan group of U.S. Congress members are ready to pass sanctions bills against countries acting on arrest warrants issued by the UN's International Criminal Court for Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. South Carolina U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham is in Israel.
Canada, Britain, France, you name it. If you buy into this arrest warrant is legitimate, then you're going to meet stiff bipartisan resistance in America.
Neither Israel nor the U.S. is a party to the UN court. The U.S. has long held the court is not impartial and would be used to prosecute U.S. service members. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Israel and Hezbollah have agreed on a temporary ceasefire deal to halt fighting in Lebanon for 60 days. Israeli government spokesperson David Menzer in Tel Aviv says the deal must be monitored and followed closely.
If Hezbollah violates the agreement and tries to again rearm itself, we will defend ourselves. If it tries to rebuild terrorist infrastructure near our border, we will defend ourselves.
A retired Army general says reforming our woke military will have to come from the very top when Donald Trump assumes office in January. More from Chad Groening.
With the election of Donald Trump, the American people are excited about the changes that he has promised regarding our military, which has been weakened by 4 years of wokeness perpetrated by the Biden-Harris administration. As a result, only 9% of young people are showing interest in joining the military. Retired Army Major General Joseph Arbuckle was a recent guest on Washington Watch on American Family Radio.
What's happening right now is family members and others are telling their friends and other associates basically not to join the military because it's gone woke. People don't join the military.